Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Hi, this is Tammy Patzer, and I am happy to introduce you today to Jeff Poirier. He is the Chief Operating Officer for AXI International, and AXI International is an A+ rated company by the Better Business Bureau, and it designs, engineers, and manufactures pre-configured and custom-built fuel solutions. What makes Jeff such a unique person to interview is his background. He has a background in mechanical engineering and an MBA in finance. So he comes to this position as the Chief Operating Officer with this really cool background. And he actually started in the railroad industry and then moved into the aerospace industry before coming to AXI International. And as a little backstory, he actually arrived because his fiancée was accepted into the Lee Memorial Family Practice Residency Program. And of course, he was very intrigued with the AXI International program. Hey, Jeff, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Great. So tell me a little bit more about AXI International and who it helps.
Sure. So the diesel fuel industry, or all industries that use diesel fuel, it's pretty broad. So there's a number of different clients in different industries that we coordinate with and we design systems for. Our largest players would be backup fuel storage. So mission critical is a very large one. Data centers, hospitals, anyone that needs that fuel at a moment's backup notice. So if power goes out and you shift off grid, those clients need to have 100% uptime for their operations to run smoothly and not to lose a lot of revenue. So hospitals and data centers, you can imagine, if you can't run credit cards for a data center or you can't process financing, you could be losing up to $1 million an hour. So it's very large ROI when it comes to having a plan in place for your fuel as well as your backup system. And you can imagine in the hospital industry, you can have loss of life. There's a number of different things that could go down. They're critical to the operation of that facility. We call those mission critical facilities. That would be our biggest core market, I would say. Okay. So when you talk about obviously the fuel, what type of fuel are we talking about? We specialize in diesel fuel. The other fuels require a little bit of a different safety concern, and also there's a little bit less margin for people to work to keep things clean. Plus, a lot of big industries use diesel because of the higher torque and higher power rating. So a lot of generators and backup storage systems are mostly diesel.
Oh, okay. So you're talking about your backup systems and things like that. Obviously, for a hospital, that you're absolutely right. It is a mission critical because you have people on life support systems and they might be in the middle of surgery and everything. So what is the primary mission then of AXI and what they do for these big companies that are relying on the fuel?
Sure. So what we do is we ensure as much uptime or as a redundant of a system to make sure that your backup power will come on and will run properly when the power goes out off grid. Some of the big issues we do see with unmaintained fuel in these mission critical facilities is the systems are run on a monthly basis just to test and lubricate the engine. But what ends up happening is they only run for 30 minutes or so, and that engine isn't succumb to actual operating. What's going to really happen in the field. So when the system goes off and it needs to run for 8 hours, you may get clogged filters after an hour. The system may have to shut down, and then you start to get into that scenario where you might lose revenue or life or just time that you can't run that business.
So the AXI system, can you just describe a little bit about what it actually is and what it does?
Sure. So we have a few different product lines that they target a number of different things within, I guess, the fuel systems of these buildings. We have one series that is an automated type system that is maintaining the fuel on the tank. So that runs with its own a logic controller or its own computer system, and that can be programmed to run on a 7-day timer. So once they set this system up, the only time they ever need to engage the system is when there's an alarm or a filter needs to be changed. It's 100% automated. We also have systems that are made for someone that wants to do the service themselves. If they want to clean every few months, they can go out and they use a mobile type system. So from our perspective, we look at it from a remediation and a maintenance aspect. So remediation is you're bringing fuel that's very dirty, very old, back up to spec, getting it clean. And the other end of it is installing a system that's going to maintain the fuel at that certain quality.
So there's a couple terms that I was curious about. I see something called fuel polishing. What does that mean?
That's kind of an industry term for polishing the fuel, bringing it back up. It's another word for filtering and maintaining. So polishing encompasses a few different things: water removal, breaking down large agglomerations in the fuel over time. Sometimes the fuel will bind together, almost like cottage cheese and milk, or the thick stuff you get out of milk. And then finally, removing particulate, rust, dirt, anything else that's entered the fuel through the transportation or the storage side.
So can you give me a scenario? You mentioned hospitals. These fuel tanks, how big are these? If we're trying to imagine what this would look like, how big is it?
Sure. So we see a large variety of different sizes of tanks, anywhere from 50 gallons all the way up to a couple 100,000 gallons, typically in the storage. They can vary in size, shape, type of tank too. So metal tanks will corrode over time. You get more problems with certain metals that are involved in tanks. It really varies. Customer range is very broad.
So you mentioned the cottage cheese and liquid scenario. Can you talk about some of the problems related to, fuel storage and what that could mean, if you're not taking care of this?
So regardless of what your tank configuration is and the material it's made out of, what will happen is as your tank is drawn down or you pull fuel out of your tank, you're going to leave sidewalls of your tank open and exposed to the air, and you're also drawing in air that has a certain humidity to it. Or here in the state we work in, Florida, you have very high humidity, so you're pulling in a lot of moist air. And as the temperature goes down overnight, that humid air is going to condense on the sidewalls of the tank, just like your window sometimes when you wake up in the morning. Now that water is going to enter the fuel as it builds up as droplets on the inside of the tank. And the water is more dense than the fuel. So that water is going to move and sit underneath the fuel. So as this builds up, you get a layer of water on the bottom and then a layer of fuel on top of it. And diesel, basically it's I don't know how to put it, it's succumbed to bacteria. There's bacteria that can get into the fuel. It could live in the fuel from the transportation industry. And you get bacteria that proliferate or they expand and eat the fuel but live in the water phase. So they live on this boundary between the water and the fuel. And they're actually eating the hydrocarbons or the fuel, the diesel fuel. And they break it down. Now, as they break it down, it develops a sludge and a byproduct. And the byproduct is acidic. So now you have water at the bottom of your tank that can help corrode the tank if it's metal. You've got an acidic byproduct, which speeds up the corrosion. And you've got water, which you really shouldn't put through your injectors or your engine. So it's a self-propelling feedback loop that gets worse and worse over time if the tank isn't maintained. Fuel has also succumbed to oxidation, or it'll break down over time. Bios especially. So if anyone's using a bio blend, normally they don't have to tell you, besides what percentage it is, where it comes from. But certain bios, they break down faster, they oxidize faster from the air. That'll lead to more agglomeration of particles, or particles that basically stick together and become larger particles. So you've got a sludge, you've got microbes, you've got water, and you've got oxidation and agglomeration of fuel itself. there's a number of different things that can happen.
So AXI actually, the technology behind it is what makes it, I guess, special is your technology. Can you talk a little bit about the conditioning technology?
Sure. Conditioning is a kind of a vague term we use to describe taking the fuel, not changing its chemistry, but making it the most optimal for burning in your engine and for storage. So whether that's a catalyst or you're breaking down agglomerations in the fuel, because fuel can still be burnt that may agglomerate together. It's just you can't get those agglomerations through your filter and through your injector. You want to make sure that your fuel is in its smallest form or atomized form, and then it can move freely through your fuel system. So we remove the water so you don't get these long-term problems, and you want to do that continually. We remove the particulate so you're not damaging your injectors and your high-pressure pumps and your whole fuel system through abrasive wear. And we're also breaking down any large particulate that has agglomerated or fuel that's oxidized and stuck together. So it's a multi-stage process that we try to do.
So how does the implementation of the AXI technology help users come into compliance for the Clean Air Act and other environmental concerns?
So that's one benefit that we don't normally talk as much to, since most of our customers are concerned primarily with uptime, making sure that their system is going to run and they don't have unplanned downtime. But on the environmental side, the cleaner your fuel is, the better combustion and byproducts you're going to have. You're going to have cooler exhaust gas temperatures. You're not going to be putting out as much nitric oxides, things that are bad for the environment. That comes from a couple of different reasons. One, if the fuel is cleaner, it's going to burn cleaner. And two is when an engine is manufactured, it's manufactured as good as it will ever get. Running dirty fuel through your engine will never make the combustion process better or cleaner. So over time, when you're running dirty fuel, it's equivalent to feeding your body bad food. If you keep it running with clean fuel, you're ensuring that the system stays almost as close as possible to how it was originally designed. So you can imagine as you wear away the injectors or you wear away your cylinders, you get different things happen in your engine that are making it operate not like it was originally manufactured. So you're losing efficiency, which means you're burning more fuel. You get fuel into your oil. There's a number of things that happen that will increase the amount of byproduct, exhaust gas, things that we don't want in the atmosphere.
That's really interesting. So how does the fuel stability affect the user?
Okay, so the user, depending on what industry, quick turnaround use, so a trucking company that fills up a tank and they pull from that main tank in that main location won't have as big of an issue with fuel stability because that fuel is being used very quickly. Now, they may still have problems with dust from the air entering into the tanks that aren't cleaned or aren't maintained properly. If fittings are loose, they still get stuff from the environment into the tank. But they aren't as concerned about the stability of the fuel as someone like a mission-critical hospital or data center, where that fuel may sit for 6 months at a time in a tank, where it doesn't get moved if there isn't a system on there to maintain it.
I see. So if somebody wants to get more information about AXI International, where can they find information about the company and about your services?
Sure. So the best place to find out information about AXI International would be our website. We've got a trove of different things you can read on and ways you can learn about the problem with fuel, the solutions to fuel, and basically just a better general knowledge on fuel itself. And that would be going to our website at www.axi-international, all spelled out, .com.
Okay, perfect. Well, Jeff, thanks for educating us about fuel. I think I told you prior to the interview that this was a topic that I absolutely had no knowledge about, and now I understand a lot more, especially about how important it is for those mission critical companies. Do you have anything that you think that people need to know about AXI International or about fuel?
Nope. The best thing I can recommend for anyone out there listening that has fuel on site stored or is used is to test it. Take a sample from the bottom of the tank and see what the quality of your fuel is at the bottom. While you may not pick up that fuel from the bottom all the time, as soon as you refill, you're stirring that all back in. And it's an eye-opener when you take a look at what's in your tank and that you wouldn't be expecting. So that's the first place to start.
So test your fuel so that you know where you stand. Thanks a lot, Jeff. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
This is Tammy Pantzer. Go make it a great day.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.